Bangalore for the first time ever, and amazed, first of all, by the beauty of the city, and then by the friendly reception that you have given me here tonight. It is absolute delight. Recently, my agents did an audit, went back to 1964, and worked out how many books of mine had been sold. And they came up with a certified figure of 120 million. It wasn't always like that, of course. Right at the beginning, I don't think I had any readers at all. And my book was accepted by William Heinemann in London at that time, in 1964, and I was just 30 years of age, and I was new to everything in life, really. I was just finding my way. And when they accepted my book, the excitement was just too much for me to contain. I had to go to London to be there at the launch of my book. And I expected, the world press to turn out to meet me as I stepped off the aeroplane, light bulbs flashing in my face. And I expected to be invited up to Buckingham Palace to have tea with the Queen. That would have been a very decent thing for her to do, wouldn't it? But it didn't really happen at all. And I went to around the bookshops, and they had 3 or 4 copies of my books, but I never saw anyone buying any of them. And so I decided, best I go back to Africa. So I went to Heathrow Airport, and I was in the final departures lounge, feeling a little bit depressed. And then I looked across the room, and there on the other side of the lounge was a lady. She was sitting quietly by herself. But, wait for it, she was reading my book. And my heart beat faster. The hair stood up on the back of my neck. The goose pimples rose on my arm, and I couldn't believe it. It was like a miracle. And I watched her for a while, and waited for her to laugh or cry or show some emotion. But she just read on quietly. In the end, I couldn't contain myself any further, and I stood up and I walked behind her chair, pretending I was going to the toilet. And I looked over her shoulder to see what page she was on. Then I came back from the loo, and then I stood in front of her. And I said, "Excuse me, madam." And she looked up and she said, "Good evening," very surprised. And I said, "I think you should know that that is my book that you are reading." And she took it and she thrust it into my hand. She said, "I'm terribly sorry, I just found it lying here." I was in Australia. I was staying in a hotel in Sydney. I did a book signing and some interviews, and then I checked out. And as I was walking out of the hotel, I heard a young man's voice saying to one of the people at the check-in counter, "But I have to speak to him. You don't understand. It's really a matter of life and death." And as I said, "Excuse me, are you looking for Wilbur Smith?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "Well, here I am." And he turned around, and then I saw he had a prosthesis. One of his legs was an artificial leg. And he said, "Can I talk to you for 5 minutes?" I said, "Come, let's go and have a cup of coffee." And we talked, and what had happened was, when he was 13 years of age, they were on the school train coming into Sydney, and they were fooling around on the train like young kids do. And one of his friends pushed him. He went over the side of the train, and his leg was severed. And he said, "Mr. Smith, my life changed. It was worse than death, because I didn't want to do anything else. I was ashamed of myself. I couldn't walk properly. I just gave up living. And then I read your book, and I realized that these things can be surmounted. You can triumph over mental and physical calamities and handicap. You know, I was choked up by that stage. I really was. I was almost in tears. And I said, well, I wish you luck, mate. And we parted then. But it gave me such a feeling of being worthwhile, having done something that could have changed one person's life for the better like that. So that's the story of my life to date. And people said to me today, what are you going to do next? And I said, more of the same, but better and harder.
I have my daughter holding on a line in London. She's got all your 32 books. And she insisted we come down and collect the 33rd book and get it signed by you, and it's a pity that she's not around here. So would you like to take a question from her from London?
Yes. Certainly.
Okay,
hello. Hello. It is, yes. She's just saying that she likes my books. There's a couple of hundred people sitting here watching your face. A couple of hundred people here sitting and listening to us. So go ahead. We can perhaps have tea together, you, me, and my wife.
You've dealt with a variety of topics which range from the African territories and how they have been occupied by the different foreign sources. How do you research so much about them and get out things like which we really do not get to know so easily?
My books are about people. And over the centuries and over the ages, there have been people subjected to subjugation by conquerors. This country has a history of that. The Mughals came in and took over India, and then the British came in and displaced them. But now the wheel has turned full circle again. And one of the things that amazes and delights me about India and the Indian people, how once the Raj withdrew and went into the dustbin of history, how so many people, so many millions and hundreds of millions of people of so many diverse religions, cultures, languages, can combine into a cohesive whole. I think this is one of the great success stories of the ages. And from this cohesion emerges the tiger of Asia, India. And only one thing in the world that still shocks me, nothing else except this one thing, is cruelty. Cruelty is the one unforgivable sin. If you take people in control of other people and you commit deliberate cruelty on those people, that is the one thing. So if my books have been against anything, it's against cruelty. That is all I have to say about the morals of my books. But what I'm really trying to do is to tell a damn good story.
So what makes his book so interesting to read?
The atmosphere. I think the way he paints a picture of Africa. Incredible. Incredible.
Like an old book, man.
Yes, it is.
Which year?
This is 1966.
Wow.
Well, that's what I want to do too.
I have never read a collection of books like Mr. Smith's. The characters that he creates are incredible. They seem so real. As he says, he tries to create them like real people, and you truly believe they are.
These are a few books from my grandfather's time. He was an avid reader and he loved Wilbur Smith's books. So he bought these books wherever he traveled, and some of them are 44 or 45 years old.
I saw Africa through his books, so I come here to see the man himself.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you. Thank you.